So you're making a game and you're almost done with it, but something doesn't quite feel right. It's like we need the final piece to the puzzle to finish it, and that's where shaders come in. So what are shaders? Basically, shaders are programs that run on your graphics card and tell it how to draw pixels on your screen. Now, just like how you use GDScript to code your game, shaders also use their own language. Now, Godot uses a shading language which is very similar to GLSL, but this one is much simpler. Now you might ask yourself, what is it that makes shaders so special? And the main reason is shaders run in parallel, whereas your GDScript code is pretty much linear. Look at this demo for example. We're trying to fill a rectangle with black to full red to make a gradient. In GDScript, you'd write a few lines of code looping over pixels and setting their color manually. It works, but it's not very efficient. Now with a shader, the same effect can be done in just one line. The shader runs directly on the GPU, so it's faster and cheaper. That's how awesome they are. And if you stick till the end of this video, you'll know how to make this cool looking water effect. Now to actually create a shader material, all you need to do is to go to your material section and create a new shader material, and then create a new shader, and this is where we write the actual shader. A shader in Godot has a clear structure. First, you declare the shader type, for example, canvas item for 2D or spatial for 3D. This tells Godot where the shader will be used. Next, you can define uniforms. These are variables you can change from the editor or code, like colors, textures, or sliders for intensity. For example, here I've created 3 uniforms, red, green, and blue. In the editor, they show up as sliders from 0 to 1. The shader takes those values and combines them into a color. So by moving the sliders, I can instantly change the color of this rectangle in real time. This is super handy for things like customizing materials, controlling effects, or giving player options to adjust visuals in your game. And by the way, this is how you would change those uniforms in GDScript. Then we have the processor functions. The most common one is fragment, which runs for every pixel and decides its final color. There's also vertex, which runs on each vertex and can change shapes or positions. Now suppose we have a quad mesh. It has 4 vertices, so the vertex function is going to be called 4 times per draw call. Now the next one is light, which is used for custom lighting. Now there are other processor functions, but these 2 are the most important ones. Now let's write our first shader in the fragment function. Now in shaders there are some built-in variables. One of them is UV, which gives you the position of the current pixel on the mesh. UV.x goes from 0 on the left to 1 on the right. UV.y goes from 0 at the top to 1 at the bottom. This makes it super easy to create gradients, patterns, or map textures. For example, if you do color equals to UVX and UVY, you get a smooth color gradient across your rectangle. But this is a bit boring. Let's add some animations. The cool thing about shaders is that we can use built-in functions like sine and cosine, and use a built-in variable like time to make cool animations. Now you can think of the variable time as the amount of time that has passed since the shader has been created. You can visualize this by a simple fade-in effect. Just multiply the alpha of the color by time divided by the duration that you want, and you can see when we play the game, the texture fades in slowly. You can also animate this fade effect by code. Here's an example of me doing it purely by code using tweens. Now the next area I want to talk about is UV scaling. Take a look at this example. Normally, UV coordinates go from 0 to 1 across the sprite, but here we multiply the UV by a scale X and a scale Y. When we increase these values, the UVs stretch past 1, and because we've enabled texture repeat in the inspector, the texture is going to keep repeating itself. Now let's try to use world space UVs instead of the usual local UVs. This will avoid stretching and make tiling easier. In the vertex function, we take each vertex of the sprite and transform it to world coordinates using the model matrix. Then we divide by the sprite size, here 128. In the fragment function, we sample the texture using world UV multiplied by a UV scale uniform. The result is that the texture appears locked to the world space, unlike regular UVs. Moving the sprite around doesn't move the texture. The pattern stays fixed relative to the world. The other cool effect is the radial fade. which makes the texture appear from the center towards the outside. We measure each pixel's distance from the center using UV. Then we compare it to a growing radius based on time. At the start, the radius is small, so only the center is visible. As time increases, the radius expands, revealing more of the sprite in a circular pattern. Here's another effect. This shader reveals a sprite like a clock hand. For each pixel, we calculate the angle from the center using arctangent. The angle is normalized from 0 to 1 around the circle. Then we make a variable that grows over time. Any pixel whose angle is less than the sweep becomes visible. The result is a wipe effect, starting from one side and moving around the circle, just like a ticking clock. You can use the smooth step function to make the transition a little bit more smooth. We can also use this noise function to make the texture appear magically. You get the point. There's a lot of possibilities. It depends on you and your game style. Now there's another UV that's called screen UV. The difference is UV is local to the object, but screen UV is global to the entire screen. Here I'm setting the color directly from screen UV.x and screen UV.y. No matter how I move or resize the object, the gradient stays locked to the screen. This is super useful for screen space effects. Now let's say we wanted to make a water shader. Now we all know water has waves, so let's go ahead and add those real quick. There we go. Now let's also change the texture to something that looks a bit more like water, and it doesn't really look good, does it? Maybe we need to decrease the opacity. I don't know about you, but it still doesn't look good to me. Now if you don't like these waves, there's another way to do it, since this one's more suitable for a top-down game. Instead of adding the waves to the entire sprite, we can only do it to the top of the mesh. But we're not actually going to change the geometry of it. This part of the shader adds subtle waves to the top edge of the sprite, making it feel less like a flat square and more like a natural mesh. Then we combine these waves with the vertical UV position in a smooth step function to create a mask. Finally, we multiply the sprite's alpha by this mask. This means the pixels near the top edge get gradually faded out according to the waves, producing a soft wavy border. Now here is where you get introduced to a new variable, and that's screen texture. Screen texture is one of the most powerful features in Godot's shader system. It lets you grab what's already drawn on the screen and then apply effects on top of it. For example, if I set a sprite's texture to a screen texture, it's basically gonna act like a glass. Basically, it's gonna show whatever's behind it. And now you see why this is going to be very useful for us and our water shader. Now to use the screen texture, you used to be able to just call screen texture, but now you have to use the hint screen texture. And now let's apply some waves to the screen UV and then sample from it. And you can see the result is this wobbly effect that looks a lot like water. But now what we can do is to mix this texture with the water texture to give it a watery look. Just make sure you use different UVs for the water texture, otherwise it's gonna look like it's fixed to the screen. You can also use the overlay blend function to give it a more natural look. And finally, you can combine the previous wave method to this one and add some foam, and pretty much you have yourself a 2D water shader. Now if you got any more questions, leave them in the comment section. I'll try to answer all of them. But yeah, that's been it for this video. Thanks for watching and I'll see you soon.